The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to this morning's role play session with your host, Craig Proctor.
Well, thank you very much, Andrea. Happy Thursday, and it's good to be alive. With me today is Rick Brash out in a cold Calgary morning. Rick, how are you feeling today?
Well, Craig, I've been out since early this morning, and I was cold, to tell you the truth. But I'm in the office now. I'm warmed up. I'm ready to go, so let's shake this hard.
Well, you can probably tell I've had a couple cups of coffee. But today, we are going to do what we do every Thursday. We're going to help you become better on the telephone when you're following up with prospects. That really is the Achilles heel with the program. By now, each and every one of you should easily be able to generate leads. If lead generation is your problem, you need to get on the phone with your coach, because really with our system, generating leads is the easy part. The difficulty that most of you have is following up, being disciplined enough to block out time to follow up your leads. You need to create a perfect week, just like I do, just like Rick did, and you've got to return these calls, and then you've got to be competent. You've got to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and you've got to be really, really good on the phone. If you're not good on the phone and you're not mastering the universal callback script, see, here's the problem. Leads that actually are good will seem like they're not. So if you find that the majority of prospects that you're calling back, those leads seem like they're not good leads, if that's happening a lot, then it pretty much tells us that you've got some problems with the universal callback script. Okay, and I'm not suggesting in any way that all the buyers and sellers that you speak to will represent great opportunities, but if you take a look at the very nature of the information that we're offering here with this program, it really is only of interest to real buyers and sellers. I mean, who would jump through all these hoops? Who would request this specific type of information that we're offering and visit a landing page or go to a hotline script and take the time to leave all of their contact information if there wasn't some kind of interest in buying or selling? Now, I do believe that some of them may already have a real estate agent and they might not be open to working with you, but you'll find if you do a little bit of research after the fact that most of these people you speak to do in fact end up buying or selling. So to say that they're not a great lead when they end up buying or selling several months later, well, we can draw our own conclusions. It's easy to do that, by the way, Rick, with sellers. It's easy for us to cross-reference the hot sheets every day with our MLS, and I did that every single day. I had my assistant enter all the new listings on MLS on the hot sheets and cross-reference on our database, and we would find sellers that we had spoken to, that my team members had spoken to, and we didn't get anywhere with them, and a week later, a month later, they're listed with someone else.
And that's those bad leads that we were told, right?
Yep. And that's what my team member might say. That was they're not motivated or whatever, and here they are a month later listed with someone else. Now, The purpose of us doing this was not to be critical of our team members. We wanted to help them become better. There were certain situations where I would look at the actions of my team member. My inside sales agent, I would look at their notes, and I would think that we did everything we possibly could. There was nothing that I would have done differently, that we did everything we possibly could do to get that business, and they just listed with somebody else. But in many cases, there were things that we didn't do properly or extra things that we should have done that we didn't do. So a mistake is only a mistake when you don't learn from it. So that was the idea of us going into MLS every day and cross-referencing the new listings, pulling those hot sheets off, and finding business that we lost. I wanted to do that autopsy. I wanted to see if we could correct some of the mistakes that we're making so we would stop making those mistakes. So that's a good idea right there. If you're not implementing that in your business, that's a good thing to do. I mean, you can do it the opposite way too. You could go into your database. This will take longer, of course, but you could go into your database. You could pull off some seller leads, and you could go to MLS and you could enter those addresses to see if they're listed or if they've sold.
Yeah. The other thing, Craig, we've always encouraged our members to do with respect to learning the universal follow-up script is record yourself. Take a minute, find a way to make your calls through your computer, Google Voice or some kind of VoIP program that allows you to record the conversation. record it, listen to it. Here's the thing, Craig. Our members will be surprised quite often at what they hear. They will hear a tonality in their voice that's wrong. They will hear themselves moving around the script improperly. The only way you're going to get better at this is if you hear yourself, and then you take those recordings and send them to your coach. And you and your coach together can critique them, work on that, and get you on the straight and narrow. Look, Craig, that's what you had us do. I remember years ago in the coaching program, everybody got this tape recorder, literally a cassette tape recorder. Many members on the call today, Craig, don't even know what a cassette is. But we had this little unit. It plugged into our phone. We had these cords on our desk. You'd hit record. You'd make the number, and you'd have this conversation with the prospect. And I remember thinking, I'm fairly good at this. I'm getting some appointments. I'd record some calls, and I sounded terrible, terrible. And the reason was, Craig, is I was winging it, and that's the I personality. So I'd send my calls to Jim, my coach, and him and I would work on it together, and slowly but surely he got me back on the straight and narrow. And that's what everybody needs to do. Listen to yourself making calls. That's why there's, on the coaching website, Craig, that's why we get to listen to you making calls. Because when we hear it done correctly and we hear it done incorrectly, we can quickly figure out the difference. So record your calls and get them to your coach.
Okay, so I have a couple of inside sales agents at my office, and we get inquiries into our office every day about the Craig Proctor program. They might be asking questions about the Quantum Leap system. They might be asking questions about the next super conference. They might be asking about coaching. They might want a free business consultation. But all these leads come into the office, I mean, really hundreds a week. So we record every conversation so we can critique our inside salespeople so they become better. So this is something that you folks might want to implement. If you've got an inside salesperson, or right now, you should be your own number one inside salesperson. You should be making the calls. One of the biggest mistakes our members make is they delegate making the phone calls way too early. They delegate making the phone calls to somebody else before they themselves are good at it. Question: how can you train someone else to be good at something you're not good at? Answer: you can't.
Right.
But because we believe that making the phone calls perhaps isn't a rainmaker activity, or, I just don't like making the phone call, so I'm just going to delegate. It's not even delegation. If you're not good at the script, you can't teach someone else how to do it. It's that simple right there. So if you think you're delegating that, you're not delegating. You're abdicating responsibility. Does everyone see the difference?
Hey,
you can only delegate when you can teach them how to do it the way teach it at a competent level. And if you're not competent at this, you can't delegate it.
Right. Very, very important. Guys, everybody needs to get this. This isn't going away. The making of follow-up calls is going to be with you as long as you are a stellar lead generator. These two things work hand in hand. And, in Anaheim, when you come to our event and you spend some time in the Platinum Room, you'll hear Todd Walshers talk about the exact same thing that Craig said. Before you can bring on an inside sales team, you have to be killer good at booking appointments. How many of you know your standard, your ratio of appointments to listings or appointments to leads? How many of you know? How many of you keep track day in and day out with some type of lead tracking conversation sheet on your desk that tells you whether or not you're getting better? If you track those four numbers in your world, how many leads, how many conversations, how many appointments, and how many contracts, that right there, those four numbers, all related to conversion, will quickly tell you if you're getting better, and if not, where the weak link is in your chain. How many of you track those numbers? All of you working with me know that I send you a sheet to do that. Very, very important. Because if you don't track them, you never really know if you're getting better. And this is what Craig is telling you today. This is something you're going to do for your entire career with the Quantum Leap system, is follow-up calls. Either you or an inside sales team member. But you, the rainmaker, the person we're training, you have the responsibility at home to teach people to be as good at this as Craig or as Todd or as you. Very, very important you keep track.
Okay, so Andrea, I want to show everybody give everyone an idea of how to become organized. Okay, so in my office, every time my inside salespeople make a call, it's recorded, and I get the recording. I can listen to the conversation, okay, and then I can go back and I can critique. Okay, so Joe just spoke to this person. I can listen to their call, and then I can critique what I thought they did a good job of and what I think they did a bad job of. Now, they get immediate feedback, which is good. You know, it's kind of like if you've got a new puppy, and the new puppy messes on the carpet. You can't discipline the dog a half an hour later because the dog doesn't know, what you're talking about. You've got to discipline the dog right away. Okay, so this enables me to teach our inside salespeople in real time, what they're doing a good job of and what they're not doing a good job of. The idea here is we want to generate a lot of leads, and then we've got to figure out how are those leads going to be followed up. If the leads aren't going to be followed up properly, I think we can all agree that creating the leads in the first place, generating the leads in the first place is an absolute waste of time. Okay, so let's have a conversation right now about how are you going to handle leads in your business. I can tell you how Rick and I handled it. We called back the best leads, and we did it for our entire careers. Rick, you're still doing it today. The best leads go to Rick. Now, the overflow, because you will get to a point where there's so many leads coming in that you're going to have other people helping you follow up with the leads. But if those other people aren't going to do it the way you're going to do it, they're not going to do it the proper way, those leads are, in fact, going to be wasted. Now, you might be thinking, well, Craig, this is difficult. It's difficult to hire and train a really good inside salesperson. Absolutely, it's difficult. This is the hardest position to recruit for as an inside salesperson. It really is. But what's your option? Look, if this was easy, everybody would be selling 300, 400, 500 homes a year because it would be easy to find good people and it'd be easy to train them how to do this. So let's start off today by training you, making sure that you really get this, that you really understand the idea behind the universal callback script. We're going to do some role plays as we usually do, and you can type your questions and your comments into the chat box, and Rick and Andrea and I, we will monitor the chat box. Okay, we've got a couple questions in here right away, so why don't we take those, and we'll take some volunteers for role playing. If you'd like to role play with Rick and I, you can either type that into chat or you can raise your hand, and we'll go to some role plays here shortly. Okay, so here's some questions. Hugo was asking this. What is the best intro to use if you have a phone number but no name? Okay, so I would say, hi, this is Craig Proctor with ABC Realty, and I noticed that you had responded to whatever. So probably they're calling into your hotline, right? That you called our hotline and you were inquiring about our listing on Maple Street. And I wondered if you folks were planning on making a move in the next little while. You just go right into the script. We really don't care, what their name is, right? We're only going to want their name is if they represent a prospect, right? If they say no, get lost, we don't really care what their name is. Okay, so it's true, right? It is more difficult when you're calling back people that call your hotline and hang up, right? Who are the best prospects? The prospects that call your hotline and leave a message. It is more difficult. So it really is a cut above cold calling, but if you don't have a lot of other leads coming in, sure, call back hang-ups. Rick and I have both done that before, and we both made money doing it. But are they as good as a guy that called your hotline and left a message? No, probably not.
Hey, look, if you want to be totally upfront with yourself, call hang-ups and get the practice in with the script. It's real simple. If you don't have a lot of leads, if you're just learning the process of lead generation, you should call back absolutely everybody. You call your best leads first. Okay, you always call your best leads first. You call today's leads first. But when you get through those and you still want to create some real competence with the script, call the hang-ups. Craig just told you exactly what to say. Hi, it's Rick Brash with the Real Estate Professionals. The reason for my call is yesterday somebody accessed my pre-recorded information system looking for information on that listing. I'm calling to make sure you got all the information you were looking for. By the way, was it you that called? There's your introduction. And away you go with the universal callback script. Now, Craig, you told me years ago that that was a cut above cold calling, but that was really how I cut my teeth in the Quantum Leap conversion system. I didn't have any trouble creating calls into my hotline on our listings or the listings that I borrowed. And every day we probably had 10, 12, 15 calls into our hotline. All of them got dealt with, and it let me build some real skill with the universal callback script.
Okay, we've got quite a few questions here. Okay, so what software are you using, Craig, to record the calls? What is your CRM system? How do you track how many phone calls they make in a day and the amount of time they spend on the phone? Okay, so this is a proprietary software program that Adrian in my office created. We were going to use Infusionsoft, but there were limitations to that because it is, it's in a box. It's a cookie cutter thing. I hired somebody that could create a program to do what? To do whatever I wanted it to do. That was our idea. Is we're going to create a proprietary software program that will do whatever Craig wants it to do. And I've got a programmer in Adrian that can do it. So here's how it works. I call Adrian at the office and say, hey, could we do this? And I like it because he says, yes, we can. I go, great. Now, all right, so why don't we do this? Rick, why don't you do the first role play? Okay, so
Andrea, do we have a volunteer?
We do. We have a Jason Walker. Hold on one moment while I pull up his line. Jason, your telephone line is now open.
Okay. Hello.
Good morning,
Rick,
Jason.
can you hear me? Good morning, Rick. How are you?
How are you this morning?
Fantastic.
Good. Where are you calling from?
Northern California.
All right, great.
Castro
So I'm going to be the prospect, buyer or seller?
Buyer.
All right. And what's the campaign that created my interest?
Distress sales.
Distress sales. Okay. Now, before you start, I like to do this. Let's remember the situation the prospect is in right now. Okay, everybody? So you ran an ad, you created an inquiry from a prospect, and the promise on your landing page was what? A list of properties. They've gone there, they filled out, they've given up their information. Now that prospect is sitting at home or driving their car or whatever, waiting for that list of properties that was promised. And now you make the follow-up call. Ring, ring. Hello?
Hello, Rick.
This is Rick. Who's this?
Hi, Rick. This is Jason Walker with Capital Realty Group. And I was calling as you had gone to my website and requested a list of distressed sale properties in Fremont. And I just wanted to let you know I was putting that list together and would be sending it out real soon if that was okay with you.
Oh, yeah, great. How are you sending that?
How would you prefer? Would you like me to email it or do you want me to email it to your home?
Doesn't matter. Email's fine.
Okay, great. I'll do that. Hey, Rick, can I ask you, are you planning on making a move in the next 3 to 6 months?
If the right deal came along, we'd probably do it.
Okay. And now, do you currently rent or do you own your own home?
Actually, we rent, but my lease has come due, so it doesn't make sense to keep renting if I think I can buy.
Okay, I agree with that. And no, so Rick, now you inquired about homes in Fremont. Are you looking for only in that city, or are you looking for other cities as well?
Well, the job that I got is in Fremont, and I'm through my probation. I got the job, so if I can get something close to work, I'd be really happy.
Okay. And Rick, I guess my last question is, do you happen to have a real estate agent who's going to help you with this when the time is right for you?
No. The company said something about somebody they use and can recommend, but I haven't spoken with him yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, great. Rick, like I said, you did request that list of homes in Fremont, and I could definitely put that together. And to be honest with you, what you requested is really a snapshot on what's currently active on the market. And those homes that have really been passed over by all the buyers and all the good deals have been taken. What I'd like to do is a better job for you. What I'd like to be able to do is send you daily updates with emails from all the real estate companies. Okay? Now, my list includes bank foreclosures, distressed sales, company-owned properties, as well as hard-to-find deals that you can't find on the Internet. All right? Now, my service is completely free and doesn't obligate you to anything. I mean, do you think that might be more helpful and beneficial for you?
Yeah, probably, but I'm kind of getting that stuff now. My wife is pretty active with Realtor.com and a couple of sites online, so I'm pretty sure I'm seeing it all already.
Well, you know, Rick, I'm not exactly sure what you're receiving now, but I do know that my list does include those hard-to-find deals that aren't readily available on the Internet, homes that haven't come on the market yet, all the sorts of deals that really great deals that you're not going to find on Realtor.com or truly are in those other sites. And that's why I was hoping that, you know, just wondering if you thought that sort of information is really what you're looking for, because it seems like the homes you're seeing on the market today or what your wife is accessing don't really meet your needs. Is that right?
Well, we've seen a few that we like.
Okay. Well, again, our list is completely different, and it never obligates you to buy anything. It would just be an opportunity for you to make sure you're not missing out on all the great deals. I mean, would that sort of information be helpful and beneficial for you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, you know what, Rick, in order for me to do this properly for you, if we could sit down for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I would be able to take down all of your criteria so that I could upload it into my system and make sure that I get you those daily updates on those hard-to-find deals. My schedule is really flexible. When might be good for you? Evenings, weekends, days? What works best for you?
Well, look, I've got a 30-minute drive on the freeway ahead of me. Why don't we just do that? Have that conversation now?
Well, typically, Rick, what happens is I have about 45 different criteria that I use in order to help identify the right property. And so being over the phone is just really not a good way to do it. If we could just sit together over a cup of coffee for just a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I'd make sure that I gather all of the specific criteria for your search, and that I can get those emails out to you on a daily basis.
Okay, Jason, let's stop right there. Let's stop.
Okay.
Now, first of all, let me tell you this. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You're engaging me in the conversation, but there's only one issue I'm going to say. Clearly, you are an I personality. Clearly. Now, I'm an I personality as well, and I kind of went the I direction with our role play. What if I'm a D personality? Let's just throw this out there. What if I'm a D personality? And instead of getting information from me when you ask questions, you get one-word answers from me. Are you thinking of buying? Yeah, maybe. And the home you live in now, do you rent it or do you own it? No, we rent. So the one-word answer signifies a real quick conversation. The D personality, what would you do in that case?
I would just, to be honest, I just kind of move through my questions because I've had that. I just kind of move through the questions.
Okay, so the only thing I'm saying is you're very conversational. You have the script down. You get it. Okay, you get it. I'd like to see you to do it, but just use less words. Okay, you're just on the cusp of sounding really salesy. You know, the convincing closing salesperson. And don't take this as negative criticism. It's not. All I'm saying is if you can shorten up this conversation to 3.5, 4 minutes, you'll get the same results, and you won't have to have that long, convincing conversation. So let's go back to the offer. I want to come back to the offer. And the other little bit of criticism here is you forgot question number 4. I think it's 4 in the script.
You know what? Not to cut you off. The reason why I didn't do that is Todd says, hey, if the guy says he's moving in 3 to 6 months, or you said I'm moving right away. So to ask that same question, when would you think you might move, would be kind of, he said don't do it. Just go right to, that's the only reason why I didn't do it.
Okay, so I'm not arguing with anybody. I'm not disagreeing with Todd. If you feel that you're really clear with that person, then Todd is correct. You move forward. You got to get to the point of making an offer. But as we learn the script, and everybody who's listening, I want to make sure we're clear on this. There's a reason we go to timing twice. The two things we really want to have a clear understanding of in this conversation is motivation, the when and the why, the timing and motivation. When are they going to do their thing, and can they do their thing? Okay? So if we're not super clear, don't eliminate question 4, because that usually does give you some clarity. And as I said here, Jason, your conversational style is very good. You have no problem with the conversation and the universal follow-up script. My only comment is you used a lot of words in there as you got to the offer. So let's go back to the offer. I want you to make it one more time, but I want to hear you shorten it up a little bit and get to the point just a little bit quicker. Okay. So yes, I'm probably going to move if the right deal comes along. You've confirmed timing. I'm a renter. In your mind, oh, this is a good one. I really should meet with this fellow. Let me hear you make the offer one more time, except shorten it up this time.
Okay. So, okay. All right. I'm just trying to get into. Okay. So, now what you requested, Rick, is just a snapshot on what's currently available on the market. But what I'd like to do is a better job for you. What I'd like to do is send you daily updates with homes that match your criteria from all the real estate companies. Okay. Now, my list includes distressed sales, bank foreclosures, company-owned properties, and other hard-to-find properties that you can't find on the internet. Okay. Now, the service is completely free and doesn't obligate you to buy. Is that the sort of information that you think will be helpful and beneficial for you?
Okay, pretty good. Now, in the universal callback script, in the first paragraph, where is it here? Let me pull it up on my screen. In the first paragraph of the offer, notice the last sentence. Now, Craig beat this into my head when I was learning this. Would that interest you? That's a very powerful four-word sentence. And everybody on the phone today, on the webinar today, should get in the habit of using that question. It's very beneficial. It's everything the prospect needs. Would that interest you? Very powerful. Just try using those 4 words at the end of your offer and then stop talking. That's what everybody needs to learn to do. Would that interest you? Now, the real buyer, which it sounds like I am, automatically says yes to that. That creates a yes answer. Okay, so you've made your offer, you've asked me that, and I say, yeah, I would really like to see those foreclosures. I hear they're really good deals. Now where do you go?
Okay, can we get together for maybe 5 or 10 minutes so that I could gather your specific criteria and make sure I send you that information on a daily basis? I'm real flexible. With days, evenings, or weekends work best for you?
Would have to be evenings, but does my wife need to be there?
It would be best if your wife was there. So when do you think it might be a time when we can, all 3 of us can get together?
Yeah, it would have to be evenings because we both work during the day.
Okay, great. And so does this evening or maybe tomorrow or the day after, what works best?
Well, I can't speak for her, so what I would do is I would check with her schedule, and I have your number here on my phone. I'll call you back and let you know.
Okay. Well, Rick, why don't we do this? Since we're both on the phone right now, why don't we put a tentative time on the calendar now, and then you can check with your wife, and if it doesn't work, you can give me a call back, and we can reschedule it then. Okay?
Perfect.
How does that sound?
Perfect. That's the perfect way to handle that. Well done. Okay? I'd say, well, okay, like I said, it has to be in the evening and probably after dinner. So why don't we say tomorrow at 7:30?
Tomorrow at 7:30? Tomorrow at 7:30 sounds great.
And look, I know we don't always get that in our conversation, but that's what we're going for. Okay, that's what the picture in our mind should be. Let's pick that time. Let's make it as close to now as possible. Let's hope her schedule allows for it to happen, and let's move forward accordingly. Mindset. When you're making a call using the universal callback script, a lot of this has to do with your mindset as well. If your mindset is, oh, they probably won't like my offer, they probably won't take advantage of what I have to offer, they probably won't want to book an appointment, guess what? They won't. You are what you think you are. If you don't think you can do this, you won't be able to do this. So you've got to look ahead. You've got to be positive. Now, Jason, as I said earlier, yes. Well done. Good job with the conversation. And for those of you who know me, you know that I believe this is simply a conversation that we want to have. What the prospect doesn't know is we're about to control the conversation, and we do that using the universal follow-up script. Okay, so you did that, Jason. You maintained control all the way through. Even when I threw those tough ones at you, I'm driving, I've got 30 minutes ahead of me, let's have it now. You still stood your ground, and you still got the appointment. So
hey, Rick, before you kick me off, can I ask you a question? Because typically, because I just not want to be too talky, right? But at that point, once I book the appointment, what I've been doing in the last week is, okay, Rick, well, on Tuesday, what we're going to do is make sure we get your specific criteria so we can get you those hard-to-find properties, blah, 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 blah. Do you not want me to do that now? What are your thoughts?
No. So here's what I say.
Make sure I solidify that appointment so that they know that something real or think something really great is happening at that appointment.
Yeah, you know? I think if the conversation lends itself in that direction, sure, you can do it without question. You can do it. But there's some conversations that are D or S oriented that just don't allow that to happen. And by the way, guys, if you're listening to the other person and there appears to be a whole bunch of fear built into their half of the conversation, nervousness, fear, unsure, that's probably the S personality. And what you just said, Jason, about talking about what's going to happen when we get together and reiterate the benefits, that's how the best way is. That's the best way to handle that S personality. So yeah, sometimes you will do that, and sometimes the conversation won't lend itself in that direction. But you're definitely on track, Jason. You've done a really good job learning the script. So keep doing what you're doing. Just be mindful of not overdoing it. That's all. But good job.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, a couple other questions and comments here. Here's one from Sandy. She says, I have more of a question than a role play. It has to do with follow-up. So let's get Sandy on the line here. Sandy, hopefully you're equipped with a microphone. If you could just raise your hand, we'll find out what's on your mind.
Sandy, you're open.
Good morning, Sandy.
Does not sound like Sandy's mic is working. Sandy, if you could dial in on the telephone and then let us know that you've done that, we can come back to you.
Okay, because Sandy has typed in the chat, I have more of a question than a role play. It has to do with follow-up, but that's all we've got. So, Sandy, we need...
mute button, Sandy.
Yep.
There might be a mute button. A lot of us have a mute button in the cord of our headset. Maybe you have one of those. I don't know.
Okay, while we're waiting for Sandy to figure that out, here's a question or comment from Shada. Hi, Craig and Rick. Can you do a role play in which the client, the prospect, whether they're a seller or a buyer, is rushing you, the agent, off the phone, not letting you talk a lot? Well, Rick, that happened to us many times in our career.
Oh, sure.
All right, so Rick, why don't you be the prospect that's trying to rush me off the phone?
Sure.
Okay, so you be that. Yeah, you be that guy, and let's see how I can handle this here.
Ring, ring. Hello.
Well, I'm calling you, so yes. May I speak to Rick, please?
Yeah, this is Rick. Who's this?
Hey, Rick. It's Craig Proctor with ABC Realty, and the reason I was calling is in response to your request for the area home sales report. Just wanted to let you know I've sent that out to you, and I wondered if you folks were planning on making a move in the next little while.
Yeah, we are. We are thinking of moving, but listen, I can't talk right now. I'm just headed out to the hockey game. Can you call me back another time?
Sure, but really quickly, if you were to move, would you be staying local or moving out of the area?
Probably staying in the area.
Okay, and do you have a realtor to help you when the time is right?
No.
No? Okay, and do you own a home or you're currently renting?
No, we own. We need to sell, and then we'll buy. But listen, I'm really in a rush here. Can we have this conversation maybe another time?
Yep, I'll follow up with you. One more question. Do you think you'll be, what's your time frame on this? Do you think you'll be doing something over the next couple of weeks or a couple of months?
As soon as it warms up.
Okay. Now, you would like me to follow up with you. What would be the best time for me to do that?
Weekends.
Weekends, okay. Now, I think this is your home number. Do you have a cell number and a work number? You've got additional numbers so it's easier for me to get hold of you?
Well, if you call my home number, I work at home, so that's fine.
Okay, well, I did try you 3 or 4 times. It was kind of difficult to reach you. Would you be open to give me your cell number as well?
No, just use the home number, and we'll definitely catch up on the weekend.
Okay, great. What time on the weekend would you like me to give you a call?
Saturday morning, but after 10 o'clock.
After 10 o'clock, okay. Fantastic. We'll speak to you then. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to push through the script is what I'm attempting to do. Now, sometimes they won't let you do that. You're going to have to use your own judgment. But you can see I try to do a really good job of pushing through that script and getting as far through the script as I possibly can. And when they say follow up with me, don't be shy about trying to get other phone numbers. And especially if they're hard to reach, because this is a mistake I made. I would try to reach them, calling them 3 or 4 times a day for several days. And when I finally get the guy, like a dummy, I didn't ask for alternate phone numbers. If you already know that this prospect's difficult to reach, let's at least try to get some other phone numbers. They might not give us any. Rick wouldn't give me his cell number. He wouldn't give me his work number. But I'm sure as heck going to try because it's been difficult to reach him in the first place. And if they're difficult to reach in the first place, there's no guarantee there's ever going to be another conversation. I may never reach this guy again.
Yeah. So unfortunately, even if the lead came with a bunch of good information, the conversation sort of reduces the quality of the lead probably to a B. So we're going to have some vigilance, and we're going to have to make sure we talk to that guy on the Saturday. The busy guy automatically goes to the first time he's not busy, and that's what I gave Craig, was the time I'm not so busy. So Craig's got to make that call at 10:30 on Saturday morning, otherwise I could be lost.
Okay, so Ron has typed in here, he says, I would have caved in after Rick's second resistance. So push a little bit further than you think. And what's the worst thing that can happen is, they get their horns on and say, look, I told you I've got to go. I'm walking out the door. But the moral of the story here is most of us give up far too easy. In hockey, here's the analogy. In hockey, some guys are really easy to get the puck off of. Okay, and some guys are hard to get the puck off of. Okay, we want to be that player. We want to be hard to get off the phone, not easy to just kind of push away. Okay, and far too many of us, like when I was listening to our call, the calls from my inside salespeople, I found that they give up far too easy. For example, there was a call yesterday, and my inside salesperson, calls the guy back, and this was a guy that was at my seminar here in Toronto on Tuesday. So, we're calling back a real estate agent that was at one of our seminars, and the real estate agent says, well, I can't talk right now. I'm with a client. But he says to Joe, he goes, were you the guy with the black trousers and the gray sports jacket? And then he proceeded to talk about how he was brand new in real estate. I said to Joe, look, if he was really with a client, do you think he'd be spending the time talking about what wardrobe you were wearing and the fact that he was brand new in real estate? Don't you see, he was pushing you off the puck, and you believed it, and you just went away. So most of us are kind of wimpy on the phone. We're easy to push off the phone, and the prospects can easily get rid of us. But in that instance, I just go a little bit further. Oh, one more question. Let's try to get as far through the script as you possibly can. And I promise you can go further than what you think in most cases. Because remember, you got to treat every phone call as if you'll never talk to this person again. This may be the last time you talk with them, so you better get as far through that script as you possibly can. Also remember, unlike Joe, who's calling people that didn't call him first, with my program, you're only returning an inquiry to a prospect that's contacted you. So they started this, they contacted you, they requested some information, and unless it's an emergency, unless someone's dying in the background, as if they can't spend an extra 20 or 30 seconds to answer some of your questions. I mean, do you really believe that's what's happening? Or do you believe perhaps they're just trying to get rid of you? So don't be easy to get rid of. Casey says, could be Cassie, if he had have just hung up on you, would you have still said another follow-up call? Absolutely. You don't think I had people hang up on me before? Great. I'm going to call them back anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I've had people be rude to me or hang up, and maybe you got to give them the benefit of the doubt the first time anyway. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe someone is dying in the background, right? You call them the next day. And here's what I find. On subsequent phone calls, the prospect either comes closer to you or they push you even further away. So if I call Rick today for the first time and he blows me off, and I call him this weekend like he suggested and he blows me off again, I'm probably not going to pursue that any further. But what about when I call back Rick on the weekend and he's relaxed, he's not stressed out, he's got more time to talk with me, and we have a really good conversation? Aren't I glad that I persisted on that very first phone call? Because on the very first phone call, I found out some information. He doesn't have a realtor. Yes, he's thinking of selling. He owns a home, and he told me to call him back after 10 a.m. on Saturday.
Right.
Had I wimped out and been easy to push off the puck, be easy to get rid of, I wouldn't have had any of that information. I would have maybe called him on Friday instead of Saturday and never reached him. Plus, This way, I can say on Saturday morning when I call Rick back at 10 a.m., hey, Rick, it's Craig Proctor here from ABC Realty. You remember we talked on Thursday morning, and I had sent you the information on the area home sales report, and you had suggested I call you back Saturday morning. Well, here I am. And then you go from there. So now I'm reminding Rick that I did exactly what you told me to do. It's Saturday at 10, and here I am.
Yep.
Vivian's typing in, it's a hockey game. You see, Vivian, when you live in Canada, everything's a hockey game. Everything's a hockey game up here. It's the only way I keep my sanity in the winter. I mean, I'm looking at my window now, and it looks like I live in Siberia. There's snow everywhere. I got to say, as you know, I lived in Florida for 3 years. I lived in Sarasota, and I looked out at the ocean, and it was beautiful and a nice sunny beach. And you might be thinking, well, Craig, you're crazy. Why would you move back to Canada? I probably am crazy. But I got to say, now I'm looking out at everything is dead. There are no leaves on the trees. The trees are all dead. Everything's dead. Everything's white. But it is way easier to work in Toronto than it was in Sarasota. There are no distractions. There's nothing else to do except for work. So I did this for all of you. So I would be better focused, and I have nothing else in my life to do except for help all you people. That's why I moved back to Toronto. So. Okay, Diana says, thanks. This really helps because I usually cave in when they rush me off the phone, but I'm definitely going to be a little bit more persistent. Just hang in there. Slide in that extra question. Keep going. You can keep them on the phone longer than what you think. When you're watching these crime TV shows and they're trying to trace the guy's call, the bad guy, they're trying to trace his call, and the job of the detective is to try to keep the bad guy on the line long enough. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to keep the prospect on the phone long enough that we can gather enough information to decide whether this is a worthy prospect, somebody that we want to pursue. Stephen says, this is very timely. I've had people answering with, please stop calling me, or no, I just wanted the information. Look, some of them will continue to blow you off, but what's the lesson here? Most of us give up far too easy. Do you know that timid salespeople have skinny kids? Do you like that one, Rick?
Very good, Craig.
I said that to my wife last night. I was listening to our salespeople, and I was playing some of these recordings. I said to Catherine, I said, they seem to be afraid of pushing the conversation along. They're afraid of selling. And I said that timid salespeople have skinny kids. And she said, well, you have skinny kids. I said, yeah, but they would have been skinnier. Okay, Shelley says, do you find there's a particular number of tries to reach someone with no contact before you remove them? Yes. Shelley, how persistent you're going to be, how many calls you make to the prospect, so how many times you call them every day and for how many days you call them, that will be dictated by the number of new leads that you have. In other words, I don't want you messing around, being so persistent with one prospect that you don't get to the brand new leads that are perhaps really easy to reach, right? Like I don't want you, calling a prospect 5 or 6 times a day every single day at the expense, of calling another lead that just came in, someone that you could call once and easily get a hold of. So the number of leads that you have will dictate how persistent you're going to be with people that are hard to reach. Randy says, thanks for moving back. Craig, I assure you that we all appreciate you doing this. Oh, moving back from Toronto. Yes. And I got to say, Randy, it's taking all of my sanity to be back here. It's been a brutal winter, freezing cold. And, yes, it's been I have to be very disciplined to not jump in the plane and go back to that house that's sitting there in Florida on the beach. And I do have that on my phone all the time, Rick. I get up every morning. I go, it's minus 20 here, and it's 75 degrees in Sarasota. I'm an idiot.
Same thing for me, Craig. As you know, I bought a home in Phoenix, and it's the same thing. I see my weather every day, and I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing here?
Mm-hmm. But it's way better for work. I got to tell you that. No
Yeah,
distractions here.
I agree.
I've got a couple of things. I've got my family, I've got work, and I've got hockey. All right. So, and I love them all. So I love all you guys. Especially Alex here has got the next question. Alex is from Newmarket, my hometown, and Alex came out to help me at my half-day seminar right here in Toronto on Tuesday. So thanks again for that, Alex. And we went out for lunch, had a nice lunch after. Alex says, do we continue with the script when their first answer is no, and their second answer is we don't know? Yeah, I want you to try to squeeze in all the questions. You see, the reason we ask multiple questions, and some of the questions on the script, I hope you notice, are pretty much the same. If we can, let me give you control of this again, Andrea. Let's go to the script, and let's look at some of the questions in the script. I'm going to flip this back to Andrea, and there's the script. Okay, so let's look at question number 1. Are you folks planning on making a move in the next 3 to 6 months? Okay, now let's look at question number 3. If you can highlight that, Andrea. Question number 1, I'm on the seller side. Question number 1 and question number 3 are the same. Okay, so question number 1. So Alex is saying, well, Craig, I asked question number 1. Are you folks planning on making a move in the next 3 to 6 months? And the prospect says, I don't think so, or I don't know. We're not sure. We're just thinking about it. Question number 2, we go somewhere else. We say, well, if you were to move, would you be moving in the area or moving out of the area? Now, question 3, I come right back to the same question. Well, if you were to move, when do you think that might be? I'm always amazed that I get a different answer quite often for question 3 than what I got in question 1, although the question is pretty much the same. Why is that? Because most people are not very good liars. The reason we're asking all these probing questions is we want to engage them in a conversation. How many times have you talked to a prospect, Rick, when you ask them question 1, are you folks planning on making a move? I don't know, we're just thinking about it, we just saw your stuff. And then question 2, well, if you were to move, would you be staying in the area or moving out of the area? Well, Rick, if we were to move, I guess we would be moving a little closer to work. And when do you think that might be? Well, I guess we're going to do it. We're going to do it in the spring.
Yeah.
What? How did that? You actually know where you'd move. You'd move closer to work, and you're telling me the commute's killing you, so you know why. And now you're telling me it might be in this.
Did we lose Craig, Andrea?
I think we did. I think we lost Craig's audio.
So here's the point Craig's making. How many of you, when the phone rings and you quickly discover it's a salesperson on the other side of the call, how many of you clam up? How many of you resist answering their questions? Now, the reason we can do that with the typical salesperson or the typical telemarketer is that questions are typical. Okay? They're not the most pointed questions they can ask. How about that person last night who called you at dinner looking for a donation for the AIDS Foundation or the firefighters or something like that? It's really easy for us to go into a clam up mode. Well, guess what? The prospects who discover we're a real estate agent because we identify ourselves as one in the introduction, they clam up. The shield goes up. The force field goes up. So we've got to carefully and methodically go through the questions. That's why we come to timing twice on both the buyer side and the seller side. James McDonald years ago taught me a really great question to ask the second time, and it was this. So Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, if you could wave a magic wand and have the whole project of buying or selling completed, what would be ideal for you and your family? Great question. Fantastic question, which helps you understand the whole issue about timing. And remember, we are calling and asking these probing questions to clearly understand timing. So when the prospect is standoffish at first, we'll take another stab at it a little bit further down the conversation. So yeah, we want you to ask both times. That's what I was saying to Jason earlier. If you have a clear understanding, Jason's right, you may not have to go there. But initially, as you're learning to use this script, just use it the way it was designed. So did Craig come back, Andrea?
Yeah, I called in on the telephone. I don't know.
Okay.
I suppose I was talking to myself, but you cut out for me as well. So I don't know if everyone else heard you, but first I cut out, so you couldn't hear me, but then also I could not hear you. So I'm on the phone now. All right, so we should probably do another role play here. We've got a few volunteers here. Who's raised their hand audio-wise there, Andrea?
We have a lot of hands raised, and Sandy was, we tried to go to her earlier. We can try to go to her again. She raised her hand. Sandy, is your line working now?
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I was going to say it's good afternoon here on the East Coast. I'm not sure where you're located.
I'm in Mississauga, so
Well,
I'm the
then
same.
it's
I'm the same
12:03 for you and I.
Yeah, I'm in the same cold area as you are.
So you're looking out the window, seeing the same dead trees as I'm seeing.
Absolutely, and you know what? Part of my reason for being in this program is because I want to be able to spend winters in Florida. So that's my goal for not next winter, the winter after, when my youngest daughter finishes high school. So.
Well, the great thing about this is you can run your real estate business today wherever in the world you want to be. Some of your coach is Warren Flax. He's one of our coaches. I'm not sure who your coach is.
Warren,
but
yeah.
Your coach is Warren.
Yep.
Okay. So tell everybody where Warren lives.
Warren lives in Ecuador.
Okay. So Warren met his wife. I think he was on vacation in Florida somewhere, and he met his wife, and she's from Ecuador. And, they moved back to Philadelphia. They got married. They lived in Philadelphia. And a promise that he made to his wife is, before the kids get too old, we're going to go back to Ecuador and live there for at least a year or two so the kids can pick up the language and the culture. So I guess last year he did that. So he operates his thriving business from Philadelphia, from Ecuador.
Yeah, and he's a great coach from Ecuador, too.
Yep, great coach from Ecuador. So that's the beauty we have today. With technology, we can live wherever we want to live, and we can get our business organized so it works without us. So that's a great goal to have. So, Sandy, what was you had a specific question here?
I did have a question. So here's what I'm having a bit of a problem with. I hope I'm on the right call to do this, but I'm having a bit of a problem with so I call prospects back, and this is more with seller prospects. So twice in the last little while I've had this problem where I've called and then I've, figured out that they're not ready to move, blah, blah, blah. So I find out when they're going to move. I call them back. Whatever they say to call them back, I try to do that within half the time of what they've said, but then they're already working with somebody. So somewhere along the way here, I'm dropping the ball, and I'm not exactly sure if it's in my questions or if it's in my follow-up or what.
Is this happening often or just once in a while?
Well, it's happened to me twice. It's happened to me twice. So these are follow-up calls that I've done, and I'm going to say within the last 3 weeks. These are follow-up calls that I've done, and I've had two people who've identified, asked me to call them back. Let's say right now that I'm calling them back is half the time they told me to call them back, but they're already.
Let me hear your questions then.
So so when I call them back as a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, is Craig there?
No, you're saying the first time you call them, they're telling you a time frame
right.
of X, but when you call them back the second time, they're already working with another agent.
That's right.
Okay, so it's the first call we got to look at. Are you specifically asking them if they have a realtor to help them?
I'm going to say I think so. I'm pretty sure I do.
Because if you're not being specific on that, we got to find out, did they have another realtor the entire time, or did they find a realtor after they talked to you and before your second phone call to them?
Right. And I don't make a note of that in my notes on whether I asked them that question.
This is the benefit of you taping your calls. This is the benefit of you taping your calls. I would tape them on. You could use your iPhone, right? You got an iPhone?
Yeah.
I don't even have to ask because everyone has one pretty much, right? Okay, so you're going to record it. Just hold your phone up. Now, you're in your car a lot going to appointments. Guess what you can do? You can just listen to your calls.
Okay.
What you need to do is you're saying, Craig, what am I doing wrong? We want to do an autopsy on this, but we don't have the body.
Right.
Right? We need to see the body. So when you if we could hear your call right now, if
Yeah.
it's something you're doing incorrectly, we're going to be able to identify this. And what makes it a problem is if it's happening a lot. Okay? So
Okay.
if you're finding a certain negative thing is happening frequently, we know it's something that you're doing. Because
Right.
there were times where I would do the script perfectly, and they would say, call me back in 2 months. And I called them back in a month, and they already had listed their home or they were working with another agent. It happens to all of us, but it didn't happen very often. So it's frequency that's going to make us look into this, dig in a little bit deeper to see, is there something that you're not doing that you should be?
Okay. I do record some of them, my calls, but not all of them. So I guess I could record them, and then, if I could go back and listen to that original call would help me, obviously.
Well, here might be a mistake you're making. This is a very common mistake, and a mistake I made earlier in my career. So if they said, they weren't ready right now, I would say, okay, well, I'll follow up with you in a couple months. I would tell them when I was going to follow up, and it would simply be a guess. It would be a stab in the dark. So that was pretty dumb, right?
Yeah.
I found myself, and I listened to recordings saying, okay, Sandy, well, it sounds like you're not ready right now. Why don't I call you back in a month? And I call them back in a month, and they'd say, well, too late, man. We already listed our home.
Yeah. I don't think it's that. I think it might be that I may not be asking if they're already working with a realtor. That might be that.
Yeah, because maybe they always were. So, you're thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? Because they between our phone calls, they found a realtor. Maybe they had a realtor the whole time.
Okay.
You see, now to follow up on that other point I made, instead of me making that mistake of saying, me volunteering when I was going to follow them back, first of all, I don't even know if they want me to follow back. So I call this permission marking. Here's what I learned to do. So, Rick, would it be okay if I followed up with you at a later time? When do you think would be a good time for me to do that? And then whatever time they tell me, I cut it in half. What if I said, Rick, would it be okay for me to follow up at a later time? And Rick said, no, buzz off. I'm okay with that. We should always appreciate the guy that's never going to use us telling us to buzz off. Because we've got so many phone calls to make. Wouldn't you appreciate that if someone who's never going to use you would just tell you the truth rather than the person that strings you along forever and ever and ever just to say no after months and months? So let's make it easy for the people that are never going to use us to get rid of us so we can focus on the people that will. That's what the script's designed to do. And it has to be done in 3 minutes or less. Another problem that some of you have is you spend far too much time on the phone with a prospect. The worst examples of that are you spend 20 minutes on the phone with a prospect, and when you hang up, you still don't know their motivation and timing. When I was listening to these recordings of our inside salespeople, Rick, Joe might spend a half an hour on the phone with a realtor and not sell anything. Well, I don't need to spend a half an hour to not sell anything. You don't need to spend a half an hour on the phone with a prospect to not get an appointment. You can fail in a couple minutes. If you're going to generate a lot of leads, and that's the idea, is you need to generate a lot of leads. Why? Because some of them are going to be crappy. That's why we want lots of leads, right? So when we get someone that's rude or someone that's not motivated, we don't care. That's the position I want you all to be in, is I'm not attached to the outcome. It's not the end of the world. Rick, early in your career, when you had 3 or 4 buyers, you were afraid to be hard on, do you have an agent or are you going to be loyal? Because you were afraid to ask the question because you were afraid of the answer. The answer might be, well, Rick, no, I'm not loyal to you. And you put up with buyers that were rude to you and would jerk you around because you had to, right? But as you started to grow, as your lead generation started to flourish, you became harder and harder and harder. Today, you're so hard with buyers, they got to jump through like 87 different hoops to even meet with you. And then if they want to retain you, they've got to give you an upfront retainer fee of several $100s and sign a 1-year buyer agency agreement, and you're dictating exactly how this thing's going to work. You're telling them exactly what they have to do.
Right.
Why? Because you can. All right, well, look, I hope this has been helpful for everyone today. I know we didn't do a lot of role plays, but we talked about a lot of other things that I think were valuable. So we're going to wrap it up. Tomorrow is going to be our marketing clinic, so we can talk about other things than just ads. For example, we might want to talk about certain aspects of your listing presentation and your buyer presentation, because that all falls under the umbrella of marketing. So we're going to go at that tomorrow at 11 a.m., and James will be with us, I believe, for that. But anyway, we welcome your feedback. Please, you can email Andrea any feedback you have on this webinar, and Andrea's email address is?
Andrea@craigproctor.com.
And Andrea, we love Andrea. She always does a great job. And Rick, thank you, as always, for doing a great job. But we'll let everyone get back, sell some real estate, and we'll see everybody tomorrow on our ad/marketing webinar. Take care. Everybody have a great day.